afternoon. I'm Anna Trebuchowska, a first-year Master of Global Affairs student from the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. And my question is, how do you anticipate the balance of power in space changing in the future if commercial space assets are increasingly targeted in international conflicts, just like you mentioned regarding the war in Ukraine, for example? And if you could also elaborate on what measures might states take to protect these assets, what would be Canada's role in it, for example, and how might this impact the commercial space sector in the future?
All right. Well, thank you. That is a great question. It's a large question. And we have two chapters in our book that are devoted to addressing this. And so we invite people who want to know more about this to look at those chapters in the book. As a short response here, it is absolutely the case that we have governments, particularly Western governments, who are increasingly reliant on the private companies to provide essential space services. And that includes things like rocket launches, communications, observations. And it really is becoming the point that the private sector is essential then for maintaining a presence in space and leading in space. And the United States definitely sees this, for example, in maintaining its status relative to China in space. And with that, we also see opportunities that if we have more and more states who are advancing in space in combination with many different actors, including commercial actors, then we have a lot of opportunity there to ensure that that maintains a place where all states can continue to operate. But that's certainly not guaranteed. And I think Michael has more to say on that.
A big part of our book is identifying risks and then providing ways in which they could be avoided or mitigated. And one of the risks that arises from the increased involvement of space companies is that some of these companies, including from Canada, are providing services to a party in an armed conflict overseas. So the war in Ukraine, for instance. And when a Western commercial satellite is providing communications, providing imagery that is being used for targeting purposes in an armed conflict, that Western satellite, that Canadian satellite, becomes a legitimate target under the laws of war. So that's a big issue that has only recently arisen and needs to be addressed. Another really big issue as we look into the future is, are we going to be able to govern very large, very powerful space companies when they are acting beyond the reach of nation states? So if SpaceX decides to go to Mars and are beyond the reach of the United States and other countries, how does one regulate what is essentially the Dutch East India Company of the 21st century? And we're seeing some indications that companies like SpaceX are willing to push the limits. So with regards to the filing of applications to the International Telecommunication Union for radio spectrum for their satellites, SpaceX has already used the small Pacific island state of Tuvalu to make a filing rather than going through the United States. So this flag of convenience behavior is starting to emerge. And it just raises some really interesting, challenging questions as to how we will deal with these powerful private actors in the decades and centuries ahead.